The way we're taught architecture and the way we practice is wrong. Why do I say that? So I'll give you my own example, which I think is a fairly standard way to think about it. In university, we work 24/7. We're all here, mental and exhausted, because we don't have enough sleep. And when we don't have enough sleep, we can't really make decisions that well. So what in the world are we doing? And that mindset is then carried on to work, where we continue the same patterns, deadline after deadline, where we think we have to put everything inside of the project. That's wrong. But it's a big problem. Why? Because everybody is taught in the same manner. We have to respectfully and consciously step out of that mentality to think about what's important, how to take care of ourselves, and how to contribute better in regards to architecture and urban design. Because without taking care of ourselves, it's really hard to put in the effort that's required to get a good quality project out of the door. So, the way we have been taught and the way we practice architecture is wrong. What can we do about this? Well, if you're working, that means really leaving on time and committing to yourself that no matter what kind of deadlines you have, you go and you leave and you rest well. You take care of everything else, of your family, and then you have more energy to actually fulfill your project within your 8 or so hours of work. And if you're a student, you also have to commit to not work until 10 p.m., until 3 a.m., until so on. And I speak that from my own experience, where I have been doing that many times. Or if you're somebody that's just starting out on your own, or you have a side hustle or private project, it also means not putting every single waking hour into that project until you forget yourself. Because at the end of the day, we have to step back and really think about what's actually important for us. Is it the project? Is that the ultimate goal? Is it to have the absolute best project? Or is it something else, to fulfill your own destiny of being a good architect? Or is it to pick up a new skill and learn with somebody? And I have to say this with the utmost respect with all the people that I have worked with, but I have never had a manager that I look up to. Why? Because they have been taught in the exact same system that we have been taught in. And they think in the exact same way. Project first. Company first. Work first. Ourselves, we're way behind on the level of things that matter. And that's wrong. We can't function that way without realizing how important our mental health is, our mental capacity. And that's why it's really important to speak about these things that frankly don't get enough attention within architecture. We are a bit of a conservative industry, and we have to be, right? I mean, we're dealing with bricks and mortar. Those are things that have been around for 2 millennia. So being able to build things on one level has gotten quite complex, and we have computational designers and we have loads of consultants and such to help us. But on the other hand, it's as dumb as it has been for 2000 years. So that makes our industry a little bit more conservative. What can we do about it? We have to take care of ourselves. Fine. We do it. How do we do it? What do we do? I mean, do we go out and quit and go and live in a forest and meditate forever? No. No. You can be in an office anywhere, and just for lunchtime, instead of having a beer or having some chit-chat, go to the park, have a walk, go around the block, have some time off that you completely disconnect. And that's another difficult part about our profession, is that it's very difficult to disconnect because we are generally mental. So we live in our minds most of the time, and that's a problem. In fact, many people, when they say you're mental, they mean you're going a bit crazy. And because we're dealing completely in our mind most of the time, we are a bit nuts. We are a bit mental. We are too mental. Everything is happening here in the brain. So we have to utilize our other senses, and the best way to do that is to try to willfully disconnect. Because if it doesn't, we've all been there. the mind just keeps chatting, and going on forever. And there's no way to disconnect, recharge, and jump into the project unless we have that time to replenish our thoughts, our mental state. In fact, Steve Jobs has often said that some of his best ideas have come around having a walk. So being outside of the office setting, just having a stroll. And I've been grateful in many ways for the office experiences that I've had in London, because in the 3 offices that I have worked in, I have been fairly close to having a park nearby. So when I used to work at IG, I used to have walks around Hyde Park every lunch, pretty much every time for lunch. And I was just used to look at the ducks, and that was great. Something completely different that helped me disconnect, then get back in the office and be hyper-focused. Granted, back then I was also much less experienced, so I'd have these crazy deadlines that I thought I have to handle by myself, not realizing that it's bad management, both on my part and the office's part. Then I used to work at AHMM, which is near the Barbican. Fantastic estate that I got to explore many lunchtimes. And also it's fairly close to Thames River for a longer walk in nature, and also to the canal. There are many canals in London. There's one, but it's fairly close because it kind of circulates the northern part of the central part of London. And then when I used to work at HOK, that was a walking distance away from Regent's Park, so that became my go-to place for lunchtime until I had to manage projects on my own. And then I got into the mental state that, hey, I cannot stop. I've got to do this, I've got to do this, I've got to do this. And I burned out many times. I'm sure many architects have burned out many times. So we really have to take care of our mental health, of our mental well-being, in order to be able to perform to the state that we can. But that means that we also have to change our thinking. We cannot think anymore that putting 24 hours of work in a 24-hour day gives the best results, because that's wrong. The best way is to have a very strong intention about every part of the project that we go into. For me personally, that means having a sketch and talking to my team, understanding exactly what we need to do, what we need to deliver. And there we go about different ways of delivering that. If it's an idea, if it's a conceptual idea that I need to develop, then walks absolutely matter the most, because that's where I get my creative energy from. It's being able to disconnect, being able to use my brain, being able to use all the senses that I have available to me. And then going back into the office and then continuing those sketches and developing maybe something in 3D. If it's about the delivery of a project, even having a bit of a walk, a bit of a time off helps us disconnect and then reconnect to a better level, because we allowed our brain to rest. We engaged most of our other senses, and that gives us more replenishment to be able to fulfill the task that we need to better, more creatively, more efficiently, and more effectively. So again, the way we have been taught and the way we practice architecture is wrong. But luckily, there are many ways that we can go about it and approach this. Now, why am I talking about mental health so much? Well, I've had my fair bit of crises over the years with architecture and with life in general, just like most people have. And I've been quite lucky, because in those moments I've been able to disconnect from my everyday tasks. So I could go and quit my job. I could go and spend a month in an intensive personal development seminar. I could go and stop working and just focus on what I think matters in life, whether it's family, whether it's, yoga, personal development, whatever you want to call it, travel. And all those things actually matter way more than you think, because being able to disconnect gives us that level of energy and level of connection that is hard to get by when we are stuck in the everyday chaotic office project-based environment with clients breathing down our necks saying, you've got to deliver this now and you've got to deliver this now, and you're like, my God. And then your managers are like, yes, of course you've got to deliver this now, because we don't care, we have to satisfy our clients. That's our primary task. That's how we deliver money. That's how we deliver value. Even the best offices that look after mental health, or so they claim, are still based within the system that we live in, which is project-based, which is deadline-based, which is client-based, which is delivery-based. So we have these unrealistic deadlines, and we have people that are willing to sacrifice everything to be able to deliver that, only for the client to come back and say, hey, I need this and this changed, and by the way, I need it for tomorrow. How many of you have been there? It's a tough one, right? Especially since you're exhausted and you've been doing so much work. And on top of that, the client says, and your manager, hey, can we just do this and this and this? And you're like, my God, it's 4 p.m. I've got to go home. I got to see my family. And now you have to stay. You're much less efficient because your mental capacity has been downgraded because of the long working day. And you're staying in the office until 9 and maybe 10, 11. And by that point, you've got a quarter of the efficiency that you have earlier in the day to approach this kind of task. So we really have to find ways and we have to talk about it. So maybe that's where it starts, is being able to talk about it, being able to grab even a colleague, go out for a walk, maybe go into a fitness. But I really think that it's not fitness, it's really connecting with all the senses, whereas fitness is like having a very set, very strong goal. A lot of people really like that, whether going to a gym class or yoga class or playing squash during lunchtime. That's great, but you're not, I suppose, connected in the same way as just being out in nature, having a walk, using all your 5 senses to disconnect and just pay attention, have awareness of what's going on around you. Now, it is very difficult. I was very lucky to have a buddy in one of my offices where we found a free meditation class where we used to go at lunchtime. I could not listen to those instructions whatsoever. My mind was full. It was going on like cycle. Oh, I got to do this and that and this and that. And then the monkey brain was talking on the other side and saying, you've got to approach this in that way and then that in this way. And then how about this project there? Oh, what about your family there? Maybe you need to cook this or pick up that and blah. I couldn't focus at all. So for half an hour, we were sitting there and I was like, man, did that even have any effect on me? And now looking back at it retrospectively, probably not as much as I would have liked to, because again, it is not engaging all the senses possible. It's still staying quite mental. Like, how is that and why is that? Because something as simple as wind, being able to sit outside, and the effect the wind has on the skin allows us to feel that sense of touch that we do not get in our working environment and even in meditation. So walking or just spending time outside is absolutely the best, no matter how crappy the weather or cold the weather can be. And that's something that students have to take very seriously as well. But it's hard because as students or even as young graduates, we go in an office or we go to university, and we see everybody doing the same thing. And the teachers having these expectations. And there's kind of this culture that builds up that then carries on to the rest of our working and professional life, that we have to do things in a certain way. We're not so efficient maybe in the beginning of a project, in school or in the office, and then we build up the efficiency and the intensity until the end, and then we have this massive push. But maybe there's another way. Maybe we can balance this energy by being very clear, very set on those intentions. Of course, that takes practice. We cannot do this from day one in university. Maybe some people can. I think there's some fantastic beings there that have a mind that's extra sharp and have a very strong sets of intentions. But for most of our mortal beings out there, that takes practice. And it's all kinds of things, that disconnect us. Hobbies, walks, yoga, fitness even, meditation, so many different things. And we have to do this. We absolutely have to. One of those things, each one of us has got to do it because we live in a very stressful environment, working fairly stressful jobs on fairly stressful projects. If we don't spend the time with ourselves to balance ourselves out, we will burn out. It's inevitable. And then we age faster, then we aren't even able to deliver what we really want. So being intentional about having the time out is really important. And maybe in a different talk, we'll talk about how you position your career in a way that sort of makes sense and you can be more intentional about the steps that you take to get there, because that's part of the intentions process. Because let's face it, the mantra that we have all been taught, work hard and you get the payoffs and you get the benefits, is wrong. Doesn't work anymore. Maybe it worked at some point, maybe 60 years ago, but now it doesn't. You work hard and you just burn out. You have to work smart and have strong intentions and have some sort of inner balance. Now, I say all these things even though so many times I have neglected my own family because I was so focused on delivering for a project, only for that project or that client to come back and say, hey, this is what we need, hey, it doesn't work, can you do some changes? And then I change them for money and then nothing happens. And then you're like, my God, why did I spend all this time doing this without having the clear intention of exactly what it is, communicating that really clearly, really effectively with the client, and maybe if the paths of expectations and production are divergent, then we have to be able to be strong enough to say goodbye. No, that project is not for me. This firm is not for me. I have a choice. We can always leave. We can always find another place where we feel valuable. So I'm curious, what are your experiences first with burnout? Have you guys ever burned out? And then how do you come back from a burnout? And then what do you think about this whole setup that we've got with universities asking us to do these crazy project deadlines, staying up all night long only to deliver a project? And then the same in the offices. What are your experiences with offices that have very demanding deadlines? Or maybe not. How do you find your own balance? This video is sponsored by UH Studio Design Academy, where we offer Blender classes that teach you how to be more effective and efficient with your architectural design processes. Why is that important? So you spend less time to get high quality results. We're also working on some graphics courses with Affinity Photo and Affinity Designer that help you understand how to create diagrams with the software better. Again, all in the purpose of being more effective and more efficient designers. More balanced in the end, because that's what we're all looking for, right? Is having this sense of balance between work, between our life, and having high value on the production based on our intentions. Let me know if you like this. Please subscribe for more. And I'm trying out this new format. Really curious about your feedback. Let me know in the comments. And thank you so much for tuning in, for watching this, and see you next time.